What is up, guys? ZEBEC and Facet. Simon dropped some gems in this X Spaces, and my apologies. I have been mispronouncing their name. I've been saying F Asset, but it's Facet. Okay. So we'll get into it today. Let's go ahead and go straight to the recording so we can keep the video short here. The recording's about 30 minutes. Let's get into it right now.
My opinion, are truly the first time where we're actually seeing crypto adoption driven not necessarily by retail speculation, by actual emergent infrastructure, payroll, settlement, cards, stablecoin payments, real world assets. All of these things are now being kind of like pulled into the system, and the infrastructure they're starting to become the wedges that that bring our beautiful crypto ideals into government, into banks, into telecom companies. And indeed, crypto is no longer trying to replace banks, it's being integrated by them. And I think that's a really exciting proposition. And with that in mind, I just want to say, Simon, how are you today, and what do you make of that statement? Because I think it leads nicely into our guest for today.
Well, hello to everyone from snowy St. Moritz. We are here this week for the Crypto Finance Conference, which is really one of the best blockchain conferences of the year. So we're super happy to be here. And yes, Ben, a lot of what you just said.
So ZEBEC is at the St. Moritz conference run by Algorand. It's a lot of big people there. They're also going to be at Davos, right? The World Economic Forum. So ZEBEC's hanging with all the right power players in our world, in our realm, right? So let's continue here.
Are the same sentiments echoed here in the conference by speakers as well as attendees. And I think if we look back on 2025, I mean, stablecoins were absolutely one of the core themes of last year. And we've seen a number of stablecoin-powered neobanks emerge as more and more of global finance starts to move on-chain. And as ZEBEC looks to expand our offering globally, working with banks like Facet is key to our growth. We're super excited to have Daniel on today. Facet, of course, is one of the leading neobanks in Southeast Asia. They're built on a stablecoin-first infrastructure, and their users have full access to tokenized investments and international transfers. So in other words, Facet is a near perfect fit with what ZEBEC is building, and we are super excited to bring them to our community.
So Facet. So these guys, I think, are a precursor because this was announced before the whole thing with World Liberty Financial. They're in some of the same areas that World Liberty Financial is in, Pakistan, right? Southeast Asia. In these areas, actually, you guys might not know this, but these areas are Islamic areas. These are areas where, like, they would want to have an app set up a certain way due to the ways that they invest, right? So Facet, and I know they're saying Southeast Asia and Pakistan, and they're avoiding saying anything about what their religious doctrine or anything like that is. But again, they're in an area where where people would want to use an app that has certain compliances religious wise. So Facet has those religious, compliances. So very cool for Facet and on that instance, right? But also that Pakistan area is a big area. In Southeast Asia, also a very big area. And this kind of leads into shout out to our guy Jesse, Apex Crypto Insights, how he was saying some of the problems that XRP solves with basically giving people access, right? Is that, it's anything to anything as far as asset goes with XRP. So basically banking the unbanked, and how Jesse, Smoke, and Max mentioned they kind of need us, right? They really need us, or otherwise they wouldn't give us access to XRP. Well, something that Facet is going to do is it's going to give access to the American stock market to people that would not necessarily have access to it, right? So it's bringing more liquidity to the American stock market, right? Giving more people access to these commodities that they would never have access to. Tesla stock, silver, and they're going to get into that in a second here. So F Asset is giving or Facet, excuse me, is giving people access to stuff they would never have access to if not for blockchain, if not for the XRP ledger, if not for ZEBEC, okay, and things like that. So let's continue.
Absolutely love that. Thank you. I'm going to run a whole bunch of questions with Daniel now, and I'll bring you in, Simon, just to add some color and some thoughts to those questions as we go. So today, everyone, we are joined by Daniel Ahmed, the co-founder and COO of Facet. Facet is a digital asset and fintech infrastructure company operating across emerging markets with regulatory coverage spanning, gosh, more than 2 people. Two people? Of course, more than 2 people. 2 billion people. Through partnerships with banks, telcos, card networks, government-linked institutions, Facet is building compliant access to tokenized assets, stablecoins, real-world financial products in markets where traditional crypto exchanges and Western neobanks actually can't operate or struggle to get exposure. And Daniel has been central in shaping the company's regulatory strategy, enterprise partnerships, the product roadmap.
So that's a very good point. And this is one of the points that I was pointing out when we were talking about World Liberty Financial and them being involved with Pakistan, them being involved with Abu Dhabi. These are areas that a lot of banks cannot get to, be it because of religious compliance, be it because of a lot of different things, right? These are areas where a lot of people are unbanked, right? Shout out to the founder of ZEBEC, Santhapalia. You know, he's Nepali. A lot of people in Nepal are probably unbanked. He actually said that in an interview, right? So we're getting to areas where many people may be unbanked, but there is liquidity there that could help American markets, American debt, right? And they need they need our debt helped. They need our markets to have more liquidity, and they're going to reach these people, right? Let's continue.
As Facet prepares.
Let's slow it down a little bit here. Trying to keep it a little bit short for you guys so it doesn't go too long, the video. But let me go back here. I want him to say that again.
Billion people. Through partnerships with banks, telcos, card networks, government-linked institutions, Facet is building compliant access to tokenized assets, stablecoins, real-world financial products in markets where traditional crypto exchanges and Western neobanks actually can't operate or struggle to get exposure. And Daniel has been central in shaping the company's regulatory strategy, enterprise partnerships, the product roadmap, as Facet prepares for its next phase of growth, including the launch of its very own RWA chain and some other things that I'm sure Daniel's going to introduce us to. So Daniel, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. How are you doing?
Doing well, Ben. Thank you so much. Absolutely. We definitely have access to more than 2 people. I can tell you that much. But that's an introduction. I appreciate it.
Look, could you perhaps give the audience a bit of your origin story for Facet? Like, what problem did you see first? What was missing in the market? What made Facet worth building?
Absolutely, man. First of all, thanks a lot for hosting us, and really excited to see so many listeners. Look, I'll quickly talk a little bit about how we see crypto. And then talk about obviously Facet and our journey as well. Look, I think given what you guys are doing as well, we all see crypto as a multifaceted asset class, right? That's actually part of why we're called Facet, because crypto is not we've never seen crypto as just a degen speculative asset. We've never seen crypto as just a payments layer. We've seen it really as touching and actually solving a lot of different financial services use cases, right? So crypto can be used as a means of payment, but it can also be used as a means of saving, as a means of investments, a way to spend your money, a way to move your money. And those are kind of the multifaceted things that we're trying to achieve with our company.
I get it, multifaceted, multifaceted things. Okay, so awesome. He mentions something that's a very good point, right? The thing to know with real world assets is kind of a rebranding of NFTs, if you will. NFTs are tokenization, right? We use the term RWA now because NFTs, most people think that that's little bored apes and things like that. But really, real world assets are NFTs. It's tokenization. And you can tokenize anything from oil to real estate to your future pay to anything you want there, right? And he's recognizing and mentioning that the cryptocurrency is this. It's not just fast payments. It's not just instant finality. It's not just the metaverse. It's all of these things, tokenization, all of it. So I could see how this would be very lucrative and very important to a country or to people that don't have access. Like we get spoiled as Americans, like, you know, right on our phone we have Charles Schwab or we have Robinhood. Like most people do not have that, and you know, instant internet connection and all of this other stuff that we have here in America. But you know, in comes something like a Facet in these countries like Pakistan, Nepal, or Indonesia, or any things like that, right? And now they're providing people with access to real world assets that could really change their lives, you know? So let's continue.
Problem that we saw, so myself and my co-founder, you know, we're both what we like to say, we're from the West. So I grew up in London, my co-founder grew up in LA, but our families are from the East. So we have origins in Pakistan and Bangladesh, respectively. So we see the plight of our people in these markets where, you know, they face a lot of issues when it comes to anything to do with money, right? You know, if you look at Asia and Africa and Latin America, there's over 6.5, 7 billion people that live in these markets. Actually, let me ask you, Ben, how many people do you think of those 6.5, 7 billion are underbanked and unbanked?
I would imagine a significant proportion, more than half as a guess.
Yeah, it's close. I think the number that I saw recently was 1 in every 3 people. So 34% of people either don't have.
So he's bringing up very, very good points here. And again, this is something that as Americans, we don't think about, but people in these areas, and, you know, he says, you know, him and his girlfriend are, you know, they're westernized people, but their families are from the East, right? You know, he says he grew up in London. His girlfriend grew up in LA, but their families might be, you know, Middle Eastern or Indian. And, you know, in these areas, they don't have access to banking like we do. And everything is still kind of cash done and, you know, barter and trade. And that's okay in some instances. But in a lot of instances, if you're trying to build wealth, that really hinders you, because now how do you create passive income? How do you do that? If you don't have access to a bank and, you know, you're just depending on your skills in trades, like that, you're really behind the 8 ball there. If you can't use like the stock markets and cryptocurrency and different things like that to create passive income with, you know, dividends and staking and things like that. So kudos to these guys, right?
Access to financial services, generally speaking, or lack access, right? And I think, obviously, you know, we look at the evolution of how crypto kind of came about, and the growth in all these different services, different use cases. We saw a really big gap in trying to merge the real world with what exists on chain with DeFi. You know, we like to say we're Web 2.5, right? We're not pure Web 3, we're not pure Web 2. We recognize that the growth of DeFi and the growth of all these exciting things that we're trying to do in the crypto space will only come when we kind of link them to the real world. So when we look at kind of our origin stories, myself and my co-founder, we see all these issues that we believe exist in this, you know, in emerging market context and high growth emerging markets. That's where we saw a really good opportunity for us to start building infrastructure, first and foremost, to enable that link between Web 2 and Web 3, to give people access to financial services. So even, you know, actually our origin story starts with our fascination with tokenization. So we were both working for the UAE government. I'm based out of Dubai. We were working for the Prime Minister's office here. And while we were looking at kind of different technological advances like AI, you know, big data, blockchain, etc., we became fascinated with tokenization. We left the office to work on building out a platform to enable tokenized assets for people in these markets, and very quickly realized that it's not as simple as you know, just building an app or building a front end. But you really start to understand that, you know, when you're touching financial services, it's incredibly regulated, right? It's incredibly it becomes very important from a compliance perspective to do it in a way that is legal, that is.
So he's hitting on a point right now that is one of the big reasons why I'm so bullish on ZEBEC, right? So he clearly seems like, he worked for the UAE government, right? Clearly seems like he's a person that's well off and has like, wealth and status, right? But he just said, we quickly realized that, even though it's not as simple as making an app, you need to be regulated. You need to have certain compliances. So regardless of his wealth, right? If he doesn't have these regulations, right? So these regulations, these compliances, as much as they're like a good thing, of course, right? Did you make sure there's no bad actors? It's also kind of a gatekeeping in that if you no one's going to get into your realm of play unless you allow them the compliance, if that makes sense, right? So ZEBEC has these compliances, and few other companies do, right? And the companies that do are going to play their part. Shout out to Metallica, shout out to Stronghold. We talk about those two on the channel, right? So again, this is one of the things that sets ZEBEC way apart from others, is that they have these compliances. So for a company like FASSET to be aligned with ZEBEC, right, it must mean, they're going to have the compliances themselves. And of course, they want to link payroll to what they're doing on their app. And I downloaded their app. It's pretty good. He's going to talk about some things that their app does later. And I downloaded it and got an account and everything. And, they offer Tesla stock and all types of things. But let's continue here.
That isn't going to break down a month later when somebody's going to come and stop you from servicing what you're doing. Regulated, right? It's incredibly, it becomes very important, just building an app or building a front end, but you really start to understand that, when you're touching financial services, it's incredibly regulated, right? It's incredibly, it becomes very important from a compliance perspective to do it in a way that is legal, that is, that isn't going to break down a month later when somebody's going to come and stop you from servicing what you're doing. And we did this in the midst of everything we saw in 21, 22, 23, all the big booms and busts in the crypto space. We continue to kind of build our infrastructure. So today we have, over half a dozen VASP licenses in big emerging market countries like Indonesia. I'm sure you guys are seeing a lot of news coming out of Pakistan. We've been working on that market for, dare I say, half a decade, right? I remember sitting and speaking to a very senior member of staff at the State Bank of Pakistan, which is the central bank of Pakistan, a country with more than 250 million people. And he laughed me out of the room, basically saying crypto is never going to come to Pakistan. It's going to take 10 years before crypto comes to Pakistan. And, we worked behind the scenes with all these different stakeholders to get to a point with these markets. And I think, Ben, exactly what you said, right? This is the first time in the history of our industry where it's not being driven by speculative hysteria, but really by real use cases. And likes the likes of ZEBEC and us, we're trying to build towards that. So I'll just pause there. I said quite a bit. I'm sure you guys have questions and stuff, and you can take it from there.
No, I love that. I love that. And Simon, just from your end, right? This is obvious partnership material, right? Coming straight at us. What's your view here on the way this is being pulled together?
Well, it's very exciting for us as ZEBEC because the integration with Facet will open us up to some of the largest markets in the world for remittance and international contractor payments. Of course, the bulk of ZEBEC's payroll business has been centered around the US, and as we mentioned,
Remittance and contractor payments, these areas are high for that, right? Indonesia and in different Arab countries, Latin American countries, certain ones in the Philippines and different things like that. People will work over here in America where we got the American dollar, and they will send money back to their family, right? This is a big thing that happens in America. I'm in Arizona here. I'm sure, like, I've seen, people send money back to Mexico, right? So this is a big thing in these areas that Facet is talking about. Indonesia, these Arab countries, this is a big thing, remittance payments. And I'm sure people also have contractors that work in these areas in which, these areas, they don't have, the American dollar is the strongest, like one of the strongest currencies in the world. If you're paying a contractor in one of these areas, you're probably paying them cheaper than you would if you hired an American worker. That's just what it is. But, it's probably kind of hard to pay them. But now with ZEBEC, right, you could pay them, and you can pay them in American dollars, right, in USDC or USD1, right? Because USD1, the World Liberty Financial, they just did the deal with Pakistan. They're in these areas already. So this is probably like the precursor. This was probably the precursor to what ZEBEC is doing with World Liberty Financial. So now you bolt on ZEBEC to this FASSET app, and now you got payroll there, right? And now through payroll, they can go onto FASSET and buy tokenized stocks, buy tokenized ETFs, buy Bitcoin, buy, whatever they want. Now they can invest properly, right? Very proper, like they were in America, right? But they're wherever they are in the world, right? So this is going to be a big benefit for people who, like, even Americans that want to move over to, say, Pakistan or move over to Indonesia, Bali, or something like that. You could work with the ZEBEC app and get paid and use FASSET or Facet, Facet. So, but this is really going to be huge for the people who are there living now, and they get paid as an independent contractor, and now through Facet through Facet, they can buy any asset they want on that Facet app.
Mentioned in last week's roadmap spaces, one of our priorities this year is international expansion, and having an option to send money via ZEBEC or use ZEBEC streaming to receive contractor payments or salaries through Facet would be a fantastic way for us to really grow our volume internationally and also provide Facet users more on-chain payroll solutions.
Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I do want to get actually into products specifically. But before we do that, before we talk products, I want, I guess, the audience to understand the scale, Daniel, that you provide at Facet. Like, can you walk through the footprint that Facet already has?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, like I mentioned, I think we're covering a user base close to 2 billion people from our myriad of licenses, and this year will be
a 2 billion user space. That's like a fourth of the world, I believe, right? 2 billion user space.
Actually,
I'm so glad, and that was exactly the question I had, and Ben asked it, right? Ben White, you do a great job hosting these, brother. Just shout out to you.
Let me take a step back. We like to say that we cover Morocco to Malaysia, and it's basically Africa and Asia, which is our core kind of set where we see.
So Morocco to mid-Asia, again, a lot of these countries that he's mentioning now, they're not talking about it, but these are Islamic countries. Not that matters. It doesn't matter to me. But yeah, and they would have certain rules in investing, right? Where, they would have certain rules in investing. So Facet covers those rules, and yeah, cool.
See a lot of demand for our products and services. Eventually Latin America as well, obviously, given the scale of that continent. We currently have users in over 125 countries. We run a retail banking platform where customers can receive and send fiat through virtual IBANs. We have a card proposition that we partner with some major crypto card providers to offer as well. And then, of course, on the other side, we have direct crypto real world asset distribution. So a lot of our clients are buying and selling, currencies, bonds, metals, which have exploded obviously over the last couple of months, and then tokenized stocks as well as obviously the crypto tokens as well.
Yeah, like I said, I downloaded the app. Everything that he says is on the app. Like, yeah, so Bitcoin, Ethereum, all the big cryptocurrencies from Tron to Stellar to Solana, Binance, everything. Ethereum stocks, we got Nvidia, Google, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Broadcom, Meta. Commodities, they have copper, gold, palladium, water, platinum and silver. Funds, they have some that are Islamic specific, and yeah, and they have like some strategies on here. I'm not sure what these strategies are. Maybe it's like a basket of different things there, but really cool stuff.
So that's kind of on the retail side. We also have an institutional platform where businesses and traders globally are moving a lot of funds by stablecoins. So just to put it in perspective, I think we hit just over $5 billion of volume in 2025. And
5 billion in value in 2025.
Realized that was approaching nearly $12 billion of annualized volume. We expect to 2x to 3x that this year. And that is obviously a culmination of the network that we've built, right? So we'll talk a little bit about our blockchain and what we're calling Own, which is going to be our blockchain, our token as well, which is really focused on ownership of assets, ownership of the underlying chain, and ownership of basically owning your financial services, right? And that's kind of what we want to build towards. We've got a team over 100 people spanning 10 offices right now, and this year I think we should hit at least 3 million registered users, and kind of at least 15-20% of that in terms of active user base as well.
I mean, this footprint alone seriously puts you in like top tier fintech distribution on the planet. Like it's huge numbers, and that context really matters when we start to talk about things like real world assets and stuff like that. So if I can move us on a little bit.
And see, that's the thing. I'm glad they mentioned the scale here, because I didn't know how big Facet was, right? And wow. And they're looking to double that. He said somewhere from like 5 million to like 5 billion, excuse me, to 12 billion in volume. Very, very cool. Very huge. Pause. Like, gotta love that. Wow. So we're looking at something like this is like, what could you say? Almost like a, Southeast Asian, African Robin Hood, if you would, almost, right?
Daniel, most crypto exchanges, as an example, they can't enter these markets, right? Banks can't serve the assets. Governments don't necessarily know how to regulate them. And you said you've been involved in some of these like really key conversations when it comes to the integration of this into some really interesting countries, ecosystems, environments. Why has Facet then been able to go where others can't? What is it? What's your special sauce?
Good question. Look, I think we obviously look at it from our perspective. Myself and my co-founder come from a background working with governments, working with regulators prior to setting up this company. I think the reality is that from a technological perspective.
So they've already told you they work with the government of UAE. They work with the government of Pakistan. They're working directly with these governments right now, right? Abu Dhabi and all of this, right? And in these places, there are specific things that you have to do in order to offer things to these people, right? There's certain laws in which religious and otherwise, in which they have certain requirements and how you can invest with them, right? So FSAT seems to take those things into account and make them make it right for those laws. So good for them in that, because everyone should have the right to invest and have the freedom to invest, and we should bank all the unbanked, right? And yeah, good for them, man. Let's continue.
The space is quite commoditized, right? You can launch.
So that would be the secret sauce right there, right? That they're complying to religious laws and different laws like that. And they must, be on the line of a very powerful family that they can work with all of these governments and things like that. And they know, what they can do as far as religious wise to comply with these laws, right? So good for them, man.
Crypto exchange out of the box. You can launch a cloud product out of the box. You can get SaaS products built very quickly. The real moat, I think, that we built is really the relationships and the, very broad terms, infrastructure that we've built with regulators, banks in particular, right? So the great irony of crypto is that even though everything, needs to be, is moving over the internet and over the blockchain, you still need banks, right, to settle real fiat at the end of the day. So the thing is that we've really pride ourselves in the network and the relationships that we've rebuilt over multiple decades.
They must come from really great families, really powerful families to make all these connections in these areas. Indonesia, Abu Dhabi, Pakistan. So, wow. And ZEBEC's partnering with them, lets you know who ZEBEC is too, right? Let's continue.
Enter these markets with either its investors or advisors or whoever it is that is supporting us to open up those doors. Because at the end of the day, you need to go in front of those people. And I'd say the final point here I would say is that really what we're selling to a regulator is something good for their people, right? We're talking about foreign direct investment coming into your market. So this morning, for example, I had a call with one of our major investors in Kenya. And we spoke about a partnership that we're working on with the largest mobile money wallet in the world, right? I won't mention the name, but you guys can Google it. You'll know who it is. They're based out of Kenya. And we spoke about, with the economic.
That's interesting. Let's try to look that up. Largest mobile wallet in the world based out of Kenya. Ben knew who it was because he laughed. He sent the laughing emoji. I don't know who it is. M-Pesa? M-Pesa. Interesting. I've never heard of M-Pesa. They're based out of Kenya, apparently. Pesa is Swahili for money. Mobile phone-based transfer service payments and microfinancing. Launched in 2007 by Vodafone and Safaricom, the largest mobile network operator in Kenya. Crazy. So they're probably going to be partnered with Facet, and ZEBEC is going to be a part of providing payroll to them. So very, very interesting there. Let's continue.
The Council of Kenya, we're looking at tokenizing a major kind of infrastructure piece there that can bring foreign direct investment to the country. So actually, it's a lot easier when you speak to, these kind of stakeholders when you're trying to do something good for the people, right? We don't see ourselves as a crypto exchange. We're not competing with the major exchanges in the world doing perps and doing leverage trading, doing all sorts of meme coin trading. We're really trying to build for real use cases, for real people to drive real utility day in, day out.
Good for them. They're saying he's not trying to compete with people like Hyperliquid and doing perps and different things like that. That's not what he's doing. And again, for the people he's servicing, I don't think that perps would be something that they could participate in anyway. But, good for him though, because, in a certain sense, people could say perps are gambling, but you know what I mean? If you know what you're doing, you're fine, of course, right? But again, I think the people he's servicing, they wouldn't want to have like they wouldn't be able to use perps anyway. But good for them. He's saying we're not trying to do that. We're not trying to compete with Hyperliquid or anything like that. We're just trying to, provide this service to people who normally wouldn't be able to access these assets, right? Okay. I knew it. It went out of sync there. Gotta restart it. I know exactly where we were though.
Doing perps and doing leverage trading, doing all sorts of meme coin trading. We're really trying to build for real use cases, for real people to drive real utility day in, day out. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, right, sure, you'll have 1,000 people making $1 million, but you'll have 1 million people losing thousands of dollars. We don't want to be privy to that. We don't want to enable that. What we do want to enable is people being able to save the money, invest the money in healthy assets.
Yeah, absolutely.
And build for the future. Right?
Yeah.
So good. He's saying, we don't want to participate in anything that would not be religiously legal for our people. So we're not going to provide perps or anything like that, or provide them with that temptation. We're just going to do this. These are solid assets like gold, silver, Tesla, Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP. This is what we're going to provide to our people.
I think it's fair to say this is the pattern that we're seeing globally. The winners are the ones that integrate with institutions, governments, regulation, not the ones that try to bypass them. And I think it's a really, really good angle to approach. Simon, this is exactly where ZEBEC is pitched, right? Like lots of synergy I'm seeing coming in here.
Exactly. I mean, one of the great examples here is tokenized stocks. I mean, that's obviously core to the offering of Facet. And in many ways, tokenized stocks is what we would consider a wedge to drive volume towards stablecoin payroll. So as it becomes easier to trade and invest in stocks on chain, more and more retail users would be open to and be interested in receiving their paycheck in USDC or an equivalent stablecoin, as they can go reinvest it into the market as they wish, all staying in one app on chain.
So you see how Simon did that? I'm wondering if this is also going to happen with the ZEBEC app. Okay. Now, of course, they will embed. Facet is already doing the tokenized stocks on their app. Maybe they're able to do that through some white labeled version of Ondo, or something like that, right? Who knows how they're able to kind of get that tokenization to work. But again, we know that ZEBEC is partnered with Ondo. So maybe on the ZEBEC app, we will be able to do somewhat of the same, right? Maybe this is a little foreshadowing to what can happen on the ZEBEC app. Because remember, Simon said we are going to, ZEBEC is going to deepen their partnership with Ondo. What does that mean? Maybe that means on the Super app, they offer tokenized stocks. That would be huge. That'd be so huge. So very, very awesome and cool there. Well, we already know they're doing it on Facet. Again, they'll hook ZEBEC in there for the payroll part, but on ZEBEC's own app, maybe this is a little foreshadowing that deepened partnership with Ondo will provide tokenized stocks on the ZEBEC Super app.
And then Daniel, of course, touched on compliance and licensing, which has been a major push for us as well last year, having achieved our SOC 2, our MICA, and our ISO standards, all in the course of 6 months, which has been key for us as we onboard institutions. We've onboarded a number of major institutions last year. We're looking to increase that further this year. And I think for ZEBEC, I mean, the idea is to us to grow our global reach as much as possible, and work with companies in Southeast Asia and Middle East that are already partnered with Facet.
So, yep,
Yeah,
Southeast
love that.
Asia and Middle East, right? So, again, cool, awesome.
Daniel, when it comes to that, like partners that are with Facet, etc., like some crypto companies struggle to get one major financial integration. You've got dozens which is really, really interesting. Why do you think it is that these institutions choose you? And can you just give us, like, maybe in some of the regions, some of the kind of banks that you're working with, etc.? Because they've, I mean, there's some really, really exciting names amongst them.
Thanks a lot. I mean, look, we've got a lot in the pipeline as well that we're working on. So one thing I did.
Okay, I'm gonna stop trying to speed it up because I keep messing with the sync. Here, let me close and reopen.
Angle to approach. Simon, this is
licenses in Kenya, South Africa, Turkey, Kazakhstan later this year in the next couple of months. So in each market that we enter, our group as well that we're working on.
Already partnered with Facet.
Yeah, love that. Daniel, when it comes to that, like partners that are with Facet, etc., like some crypto companies struggle to get one major financial integration. You've got dozens, which is really, really interesting. Why do you think it is that these institutions choose you? And can you just give us, like, maybe in some of the regions, some of the kind of banks that you're working with, etc.? Because they've, I mean, there's some really, really exciting names amongst them.
Thanks a lot. I mean, look, we've got a lot in the pipeline as well that we're working on. So one thing I didn't mention is that, you know, we will have live licenses in Kenya, South Africa, Turkey, Kazakhstan later this year in the next couple of months. So in each market that we enter, our go-to-market strategy is really trying to partner with.
So they're expanding into Africa and Turkey, Kazakhstan. So very, very cool. There even more areas that ZEBEC will be able to hit.
A major bank or two, and then a major telco or two as well, because we see banks and telcos as really the best distribution for these, use cases that we were referring to, right? And it's interesting, in each use case, each client or each integration, they all have their own view on crypto, right? So part of it is educating these banks and these platforms on, what crypto can do for their users, and then ultimately, it's a deal cycle, right? Like any partnership and any deal, you go through an RFP process, you go through rounds of presentations, business case, all sorts. You do MOUs, but ultimately, it's about finding these partners that really want to bring a crypto proposition in. And in some cases, it's very specific. So we have banks that want to offer just tokenized gold and tokenized stocks. In some cases, we're talking to actually we signed an MOU today. We haven't announced it. It's with a very, very large telco group that has telcos in a number of emerging markets that wants to offer a complete wallet, a complete crypto wallet. So buying, selling, saving, investing, all sorts of use cases. But that is going to be announced in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll start building out the functionality for that. But yeah, I think some of the
another big deal, and it seems like he talked with Simon about it already. So that's juicy. We'll be announcing in a couple of weeks. Can't wait to hear what that is.
Names that I can talk to you about now are, for example, in the UAE, we are working very closely with a large bank here called Ajman Bank. We have partnerships with money exchange businesses, like in Bahrain, an exchange called NEC. NEC Exchange, they're a money exchange business. They users 80,000 of them on a monthly basis are sending money back home. They wanted to offer tokenized gold and tokenized assets to their users on a monthly basis, so they can actually save some of that while they send some of it as well. So, excuse me. In each case, it's unique, and I think we've started to build a playbook that we're now kind of using in each market. So, I think I would say, interesting point that we've realized in talking to these telcos, banks, and other financial institutions is that they don't want to experiment themselves. They'd rather partner and integrate with people that have already done it, because the risk has already been kind of engineered out by us doing it for ourselves. So I think that's probably why it's been easier to integrate than and then on the other hand, you also see other banks launching their own propositions as well. I think I saw today a major bank in Germany, I think it was, that got their own license today actually. So some banks and some institutions will try to get their own licenses, others will partner with companies that have those licenses.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm reading it here. Germany's second largest lender DZ Bank secures retail crypto trading MiCA license. So every day I see, institutions trying to get into the space. So
Let's let's talk about the stack itself then. Like, what is Facet distributing, and why those assets, like in particular?
Absolutely. Look, we have an internal acronym. We call it CMSBC. So crypto, metals, stocks, bonds, and then currencies. But I think we've now expanded to funds as well. So really, if you think about a Robinhood, you think about a eToro, you can effectively get access to anything, right? Oil, water, gas, stocks, gold. So we're offering all of that, but we're trying to make it very specific to either the best performing assets or kind of safe assets as well, right? We're not trying to bring on too many things onto the platform that are incredibly volatile so people lose them. But I'll tell you, for example, the largest held asset on our platform is actually tokenized NVIDIA, and then it's Bitcoin, right? The last couple of months, we've seen our silver ETF, get a lot of interest because of the silver price. So I think it's more that actually the way we've built it is that it's not that these users are seeing these as tokens, right? That's kind of an abstracted way. They're actually seeing them as assets. So they're thinking from a savings perspective or from a growth perspective rather than I'm going to invest in a token and make 50x.
Yeah, that's really interesting. They're trying to get basically people trying to get access to stocks that the rest of the world is appreciating and benefiting from.
And I'll give you one more example, right? Let's take Pakistan again because it's a big market of ours, right? It's a very unique situation, and I think it will be interesting for your users or your your customers and partners in the West to kind of hear this example. It's fascinating that a person growing up in Pakistan, let's just take above average, they've gone to the best university, they've got a best job in Pakistan, top tier job. They can buy a MacBook, they can buy an Apple phone, but they won't be able to access Apple stock, right? Whereas you compare that to anybody in the West or in emerging in a market that is not emerging, you can access Apple stock from 50 different apps very easily. And
see, that's the point right there, guys. The best growing up person in Pakistan can't access Apple stock. And that goes back to the point that I was making at the beginning of the video. We take it for granted in America that we have this access, but in other countries, even some place that's probably pretty developed like Pakistan, right? They can't have access to American stock, and I don't see how you can even properly as a normal person, you know what I mean? Not these people like the person who's probably speaking who can go to London, who can go to America and different things like that. Like talking about the person that like the normal like high achieving Pakistani student that doesn't have really like familial connections. He can't access and no shade on the person that was speaking, but he can't access, this Pakistani student can't access Apple stock. So like it's going to be very hard for them to do like to earn passive income, to make their money grow and work for them in a passive manner. So very cool on these guys to invent this app and make it available to people in these countries that are like that, right? So let's continue.
If you look at the historical numbers, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I think Apple stock has gone up like 50,000% in the last 40 years or 30 years or something, right? It's insane. Like people have built generational wealth through buying certain stocks and ETFs for their families. Whereas if a lot of countries are just locked out from that, whether it's due to their currencies, whether it's due to KYC issues, but blockchain just enables this new layer for transacting. And as long as it's compliant, KYC, AML is done, you can now start to transact over the blockchain. And it just abstracts away this kind of issue with, having to be in a country where you have access.
So now it's giving, and to me, this seems like maybe the ultimate goal of cryptocurrency in that you can bring more liquidity to the stock market, to the American stock market, where this is the biggest pool of liquidity, which I never thought about it. But, if people are locked out from accessing that pool of liquidity, or like he said, like people have made millions on, they've changed their lives with Apple stock or Amazon stock or Tesla stock or, you know, different things like that, or access to Bitcoin, you know. So now through apps like this, people in these countries have the ability to do that.
Really,
Yeah.
in one line, what I would love to say is that we're just trying to enable access to financial services, and we do that through blockchain. So blockchain is a means to an end, and crypto is a means to an end.
Yeah, okay, understood. That's great. Not satisfied simply being a distributor, you're also building your own chain, right? Like, I'm conscious of everyone's time, but I wondered if, before we wrap, if you could just give us a bit of an indication on that chain and why make that move.
Yeah, so look, I think the chain, again, the chain is secondary, actually. We're not building a chain for the chain's sake. There's, everybody loves to say there's a billion layer 2 chains. We're not trying to do that as well. We're actually working with other layer 2s to build on top of. But the real value add here is that, it's not about TPS. It's not about, we've got some sexy technology that other people don't have. It's not that. It's that what we've built is a network, and we continue to build that network that will compete, I guess, with one day with, let's say, with Swift. And there's a lot of value there. We're distributing tokenized assets today. And we get people who are tokenizing assets on Polygon distributing on our platform. We have people that are tokenizing.
So interesting. He's saying they're building a platform that would possibly be a Swift competitor. But it's really interesting the way he said it, in that, like, look, bro, we're not trying to do some gimmicky, like, sexy thing where it's like, oh, we got the most TPS type of deal. Like, and I hope I'm not crushing a lot of people's dreams here, but when certain projects come out and say, like, we got the best tech and we got the best this, and it's like, and nobody's attached to them, you might want to be like, oh, I don't know. Especially if there's nobody to the, like a ZEBEC or Circle or, Tim Draper, Mark Andreessen, Kathy Wood. If there's nobody like that attached to them, and they're just all of a sudden talking about they got the highest TPS, like, I don't know about that, right? But I'm glad he made that distinction. Like, it seems as though his focus is, okay, we're building a network for our people, and we're not trying to get the sexiest TPS. We're trying to get a network of networks that Polygon can work with and different people can work with, and maybe we're a Swift alternative, right?
On Ethereum that are distributing on our platform. The idea here is that we unify all of those and make it easy for people to go between different assets, and have it on our chain. Just as another layer to make it easy for us to settle, to transact value between all of these different assets, and connect it to our fiat on and off ramps as well. So that's the goal. It's not about the chain. It's more about all the other things associated.
I love that. In a moment, I'm going to give you the opportunity just to share some final thoughts, and also, I think, let our listeners understand how they can get involved and find out more about what you're doing. But Simon, so much information here, right? And really exciting stuff. How does this kind of dovetail with ZEBEC's intention in the coming months and years?
It is really exciting, and it fits squarely in our roadmap for 2026. I think, as our community knows very well, ZEBEC has been on a journey, an evolution from a protocol to a payments network, and now to a global financial ecosystem. So as part of going global, we need to work with regional specific partners with deep local expertise and all the licenses that they need to operate. And this opens ZEBEC's products and ecosystems to a much bigger global audience. So tapping into Facet's 2 million active customers is a big leap forward for us. And Facet customers will see throughout the year ZEBEC features being implemented in the Facet app, I think starting with the ZBCN token, followed by access to parts of the ZBCN product ecosystem. So it's going to be a very exciting year for both companies. And I encourage everyone from the community to follow Facet very closely on their journey as well.
Yeah, I love that. Daniel, before we...
So Simon just said it. They are going to integrate pieces of ZEBEC into the app, which makes sense. If they're doing all of this with remittance payments and contractors, right? It would make very much sense that they can just integrate ZEBEC in and they can do payroll, right? These areas, Indonesia, the UAE, different areas of Africa, different areas of different types of these areas are areas where people would have contractors working, doing different programming jobs, doing different, personal assistant type of jobs and things like that. And now with the ZEBEC, they can pay them, and they can pay them kind of directly in USD1, right? And it's really easy, it's really clean, it's and it's real time, right? So this is going to be a really big, mutually beneficial thing for both Facet and ZEBEC. ZEBEC gets all of Facet's customers, and they're all their, like you said, like the gentleman said, that they possibly have the reach of 2 billion people that they can possibly reach with this app. And, I'm sure a lot of those people would like to be paid streaming payroll in real time, right? Let's continue.
We close, there's a clear pattern emerging for me, and it's, RWAs, stable coins, payroll, cards, banking, government rails, compliance, all of these things coming together here. They sit upstream of the speculative crypto world, the bubble sometimes that we live in. They're kind of the on-ramps for the next billion users, really, truly. And it feels like you're very, very, you're at the bleeding edge of that, and as it's happening. So it's an amazing, great opportunity to get to meet you and understand what you guys are doing. Before we close, are there any final thoughts on this? And also, I think just any how can our listeners get involved? Can understand? Obviously, they can follow you on X, but give us a little bit more of a how people can get involved and pay attention to what you're building.
For sure, man. Thank you again. Appreciate you and Simon hosting us. I think you actually just said what I wanted to say, right? Like the next billion users, we all talk about it from every. You look at any token or any crypto platform, we'll talk about bringing the next billion users online, and I think they're not going to come from trading memes. I can tell you that much, right? I think whoever wanted to trade memes has common. There probably will be more people. There will be more memes, but I think we're maturing, right? As an industry, we're maturing as a population. And if you think about, fast forward 20 years from now, 30 years from now, aside from the technological advances that we're seeing, these emerging markets that we work in, they're going to be the major markets. We're going to see huge population growth in these markets, while emerged markets decline from a population growth perspective. The real growth is going to be there.
Wow, he's saying some things that honestly, guys, people need to be aware of, right? He's saying that, in these markets that he's talking about, these markets are emerging. And our markets are probably going to, as far as like the cost of having a family in America is really on the rise. So our population is actually lowering, whereas in these areas, the populations are actually kind of increasing. So when he's saying, okay, well, and people talk about onboarding 1 billion people, but we can talk about it and actually mean it, because a lot of these people are unbanked and they need this service, right? So we can talk about it and mean it. And, we're not offering, memes or whatever to our people, and, not downing meme coins. Some people make money off of meme coins, but, he's saying that, this is, we're offering these true assets to our people, and, good for him, good for them, right? And it's cool to see that ZEBEC is a part of that, and they're thinking forward and how they're going to be a part of this emerging market, right? Let's continue.
We're positioning ourselves to enable payroll savings, compliant access to real assets, all the things that you mentioned. So I think this partnership with ZEBEC is really exciting for us. You guys are solving kind of the flow problem, we're solving the access problem. I think together we can really do some interesting things. So yeah, I mean, follow us, look at, follow us online. Obviously, that's, I think, number one. I would actually recommend you guys download the app, test it out, give us feedback. We'll have our own tokens coming out in a couple of months as well. We'd love for you guys to participate in that as well. But yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, no, really appreciate it, Daniel. I'm conscious of your time. I want to let you get back to it. So thank you so much. Simon, appreciate you as ever and how busy you are. Enjoy it over there in St. Moritz. It sounds like a lovely few days out. I'm sure there's lots of business being done, and can't wait to hear all about it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Daniel.
Nice one. JJ, give us a
Looking
wrap.
forward to the next one.
Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Looking
Thanks.
forward to the next one. Thanks, Facet. Thanks, Simon. Obviously, thanks, Ben, and thanks everybody that joined. We'll see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.
So very good spaces there. Very good spaces. Gives me expectation that maybe the ZEBEC Super App will have tokenized stocks on it through Ondo, right? And they are also foreshadowing here. Like, take a look at the population numbers and stuff like that. What the FASSET guy mentioned, or Facet, what the Facet guy mentioned is a true statement. Like, our population here in America is on a decline a bit, right? And, you know, since things are so expensive, inflation and all of that, whereas that area of the world, it's increasing, right? And different things you look at when different people talk about, you know, world currencies and how currencies survive and different things like that, and how pendulums swing and things like that. It may be that time, that part of the world's time to increase a bit, right? So very interesting conversation, but what I take away from it most is ZEBEC is in the driver's seat, and for when it comes to streaming payroll and them getting integrated into an app like FASSET, really speaks volumes. And also, or not FASSET, Facet, excuse me. I'm gonna keep saying that wrong. Please forgive me on that, guys, and Facet people, please forgive me on that. Facet. I'm gonna get it. But yeah, I'm loving this, and it's giving me a lot of good anticipation for the ZEBEC Super App. Can't wait to see what happens there. I really hope that they also allow the purchase of tokenized stocks in the ZEBEC Super App, and I think that's what we're foreshadowing here. I think that's what we're gonna get announced from Ondo, right? Is that they're gonna actually offer tokenized stocks within the ZEBEC Super App. It just makes sense. You're already there, getting paid in real time. Why not invest as well? Now, imagine what that does to ZEBEC's price, guys. What it does to the price of the token. My goodness. So if you made it to the end here, put Facet into the comments. Now let me know you made it to the end. I know this is a little bit longer video, but we went over the whole spaces, so it took a little time there. So thank you guys so much for coming through. I'm out. Peace.